Yo, 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 what's happening, ladies and gentlemen? They call me Mr. Baker, the music maker, and I'm coming at you with the long awaited, long overdue Gravity Falls Part 2. Oh, yeah, it's going down. Today, you can call me Batman, your local neighborhood Dark Knight. What's up? Yeah, before we get started, let's just hear the whole thing. Let's hear this bad boy in its entirety. It's all finished. Let's check it. I'm gonna move this thing. Yeah. Huh. Here's the end of part one. Here's the beginning of part two. There it is. There it is in its entirety. Yeah. I told you where part two starts, and it starts right after this long string of teal, purple, teal, and green. If you have not checked out part one, click the link in the description below to make part one so that you're ready to go and continue into part two, which is coming at you right now. Now, first thing you got to change is the settings. Go to settings down here. You got to change that 14 bars. You got to change the 6 bars that you had before into 14. Yes, we're adding 8 more measures of music. So turn that 6 into 14 and it will extend your piece of music. After you got it at 14, don't need to change anything else. Click check. Excellent. Now, let's go ahead and fast forward that bad boy and see what's going on. I'm going to start with the drums first. Now, this is where we left off. I'm going to scroll down here so we can start work our way from the bottom to the top. What we got here is the same drum part that we've had since the beginning, or since the beginning of the end of the intro, which is right here. So we have 4 bars of this pattern, which is circle, skip, triangle, skip, circle, skip, triangle, skip, circle, skip, triangle, skip, circle, circle, triangle, skip. Make sure you put that double circle in the last beat of each white and gray section. So this is the drums we already had for 4 measures total: white, gray, white, gray. In the part 2, we're going to continue that pattern for 4 more measures. Check it out. So part 2 is going to start after that last string. If you're looking at the bottom, and last string of half a measure of red, half a measure of purple. Then before we get to all these colors here, let's just put these drums in, and it's the same pattern. Circle, skip, triangle, skip, boom, 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 which is boom, clap, boom, clap, boom, clap, boom, boom, clap. So make sure that double circle is at the last beat of the white, the last beat of the gray, the last beat of the white, and the last beat of this gray. Then it's going to change. After 4 measures of that same pattern, we have white, and gray. The next white section, you're going to start doubling up on all the circles, which is circle, circle, triangle, skip, circle, circle, triangle, skip. Keep that going all the way for this white section and that gray section, and then the half of the last white section here. And then that final gray section is going to be something different. It's just going to be circle and triangle, skip 3, circle and triangle, and those are in a straight line. Then you skip the rest. I'm going to rewind and say all that again. Remember, we finished with part 1, which is that last string of teal, purple, teal, green. Scroll that down. The bottom part is the half a measure of red, half the measure of purples. Then we're going to start on this next white section, which is that same pattern we had before, for 4 measures total: white, gray, which is circle, skip, triangle, skip, same thing, but then circle, circle, triangle, skip at the end of each white and gray section for 4 more times. So we have white, gray, gray. Then we have 4 more sections of white and gray, but this time we got to double up on the circles. Circle, circle, triangle, skip. That's for every beat. Same with the gray, every beat. But then the last white section, you're only going to fill out half the measure of that and leave the last half blank. And then the final gray section, you got circle and triangle that line up, skip 3, same, skip the rest. So check your drums, make sure it's the same pattern as we did before, which is this. That's the same as that, same as that, same as that. And then we change it to double up circles, double up, then half a measure of doubling up, and then this gray part, which is different than the rest. Let's hear that drum part. No, let's keep going. I want to keep plugging in so we don't take forever on this video because this is a long, really long song. Let's keep it going. So now we have the bass part. We finished our settings. We put that at 14 bars. We finished our drums off, which repeated the same pattern as we did before, and then changed it up for the last 4 bars. Something different on that last 4. Cool. Make sure you pause it and take your time to make your drums look the way they're supposed to. Now let's rewind back to the beginning of part 2. In the bass line, bass line means low notes, okay, which are the notes directly above the circles and triangles. We got 2 octaves of them, and we got 3 octaves total. The high notes are in that top octave. To save that top octave, we have 1 divided by that thick blue line. Here's the second octave, then another thick blue line, and then the high octave. So we got a lot to work with here. But it's actually pretty easy for the bass line. Why? Because it does the exact same thing as it did for 4 bars before. It repeats. So let's rewind to the beginning after the intro. We have that cool little intro here, and after that fat row of circles and triangles starts the main piece, which is right here, and it starts with orange, skip, orange, skip, orange, skip, all the way through the whole white section. But then on top of that, you have to fill in those skips with the higher orange that's above that thick blue line. So fill in the gaps for the alternating octaves, which is cool little effect. And then it does that for the gray section, but with green instead, which is higher than the orange. So orange, skip, all the way through that white section. Fill in the gaps with the higher orange. Then you have green, skip, all the way through the gray section. Fill in with the higher greens in betweens. That rhymes. Lovely. Let's keep going. So we're going to fast forward back to part 2, which is here. Here's part 1. There's a whole group of orange, whole group of greens, whole group of this magenta, then half a group of red and half a group of purple. Then it repeats this whole thing. So let's check out the beginning of part 2, which is the same pattern. Orange, 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 orange. Alternate the oranges all the way through the whites. Then the gray section, alternate the greens. Excellent. Then that next white section is the same as that one before, which is magenta. It's a little bit higher than the greens, and you're going to alternate that. Same. Magenta, skip, with the ones in between. Same thing. That's the exact same as we did before. So that keeps it pretty simple. So you're going to repeat that pattern, and then just as before, we have a half a measure, which is half the gray section of red, alternating. The higher reds, okay, so this one jumps up. It keeps kind of raising. Starts on the low orange, then the greens, and the magentas, then higher reds. Then it drops back down to purples for half a measure. Same kind of thing. Purple, skip, with alternating. But this time with 4 instead of a whole 8 with alternating. Let's check that out again. 8 oranges for a whole white section. 8 greens with alternating octaves. Then 8 magentas with alternating octaves. Then 4 reds alternating. 4 purples alternating. Then we have this new section. When you get to the drum part where it doubles up on the circles, let's start there. It actually starts to cut it in half. The bass line is half as long as before. So this time, instead of a whole row of oranges, we have half a measure of oranges. Instead of a whole row of greens, we have half a row of greens. So we have 4 oranges with skips in betweens, alternating oranges here, then alternating greens for half a white section. So the first, we're looking at the double dots and triangles here when we finally reach that part on the drums. We have the oranges for half a measure of white. We have the greens for the last half a measure of white. Then for the gray section, we have magenta for half a measure. Then we have red for half a measure. Don't worry about this. This will get filled in later. Don't you worry about that. So we have the magentas for half a measure and the reds half a measure, which should look like that, correct? So I want you to fill in those other ones for 5 in a row on the red for that last, second to last gray section here. I know it's a little complicated, a little weird and confusing. Let's go ahead and I'm going to do a little review, recap. So right when you start the double dots for the whole measure, the double circle, you're going to do half a measure of orange, half a measure of green, half magenta, half red, half purple on this white section. And that should line up with your last group of double dot triangles. And then there's blanks. Leave those blanks there. We're going to get to that at the end. That's probably the most complicated part. Don't worry about that. We'll save that for later. So I'm going to rewind it, give you a chance to pause, and make sure your bass line is looking the way it's supposed to. beginning of part 2, which is the same as the last part, which that makes pretty easy. And then remember, it cuts in half as far as the length of it when it gets to the double dots. Finish that off, and then don't worry about that ending too. We'll plug in the ending as well in a little bit. So that's all there. Cool. So I want to listen to it one more time, and I want you to focus on the bass line, which is the one we just filled out. And I'll kind of motion to show you where it's going. Let's hear it. Right here. So there's the greens. Magenta for a whole measure. Half of red, half of purple. Repeat that. Whole measure of orange. Whole measure of green. Whole measure of magenta. Half of red, half of purple, half of orange, half of green, half magenta, half red, half purple, and then love it. Cool. So that's what the bass line sounded like. So check your drums, check your bass line. Now we're ready for the melody, which is here. The melody is the top part. So I'm going to move my head down here, and we're going to check out this melody. Remember, part 2 starts after this string of teals, purples, teals, and greens. Now we have part 2 starting right here. Now, instead of trying to describe all the spacing with this, I'm just going to pause it. I want you to pause right here and just go ahead and put it in as is and try to copy the spacing, because explaining how that top part works will take forever. But what I will explain is that there's only 3 colors I'm seeing so far. I'm seeing only the greens, purples, teals, and greens. That makes it pretty easy. And what I do see is this white section is the same as that white section, which makes it pretty easy as well. So make sure that looks just like that. This gray section has a similar pattern, but a little different. So I'm just going to make sure you pause it right there to check your spacing for that. And let's fast forward a little bit. And I'm trying to go as quickly as possible. This is a whole lot. It's a whole lot. So just do your best. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. So there's that white section, gray, white section that's the same as that. Different kind of gray section. It kind of starts the same with the purples, right? But then it does this darker orange here for that last part of that gray section. So I'm going to go back. Here's the beginning of the part 2. Here's the gray section. Here's the same white section as before. Then a similar but a little bit different gray section. And then, oh my goodness, it's the same as the white section before. So that white section keeps coming back and looking the same. So that makes it pretty easy. So I'm going to just pause that right there. And I want you to copy that white section, which is the same as the last 2 white sections here. And then this gray section is looking a little different with magentas instead of purples. So check that color change. Make sure you don't miss that. And then there's a whole string of 4 teals, 4 reds, which is why we filled in those gaps of the bass line, because we want to have 4 reds, what actually equals 5 total, because you got that one hanging over. Don't worry about that. You can leave it there. 5 reds here, then 4 purples, 4 dark oranges. Let's check that again. I'm going to go back to the beginning of this melody. Remember, we finished part 1 there. Here's part 2, which is this white section, this gray section. Same white section, similar gray section, but different here. Same white section, then different gray section because the colors change and stuff, and it starts the very ending, getting close to the very final run right there. So there is your last few sections of gray and white. Now, we've made it to the end, which is this weird pattern that make sure you plug in the right. There's no spaces in between, but it is a weird, complex combination of colors. So we have this string of teals, reds, purples, and dark oranges. Now, on that second half where your drums are empty down here, that's where you start that weird pattern. And I want you to just go, this is the order. It goes green, orange, purple, red, yellow, red. Green, orange, purple, red, yellow, red. And then if you look what I did under there, I scrolled down and I doubled up on that. And I made it the same an octave below to make it thicker and fatter sounding. Remember, this is above the section that has no drums. So it goes green, orange, purple, red, yellow, red. Boom. And then a final orange at the beginning of the last gray section. So check that, make sure that pattern's there. Then scroll down and do that same thing an octave down, which is just lining it up the same colors in a straight line. Make sure that purple's in there too. Good. So it looks complicated, like a bunch of random dots placed, but they're actually in a straight line with each other, and it's actually just copies the top notes and then also ends on an orange at the beginning of that gray section. And that beginning of the gray section is your first double circle triangle thing. And then that final chord, let's build it from the bottom to the top. Go all the way down. You start with the orange, purple, orange, purple, orange, purple, which is just D A D A D A, a big thick open D and open fist, which sounds like a cool final ending. Now that's pretty much it. And once you got that melody down and you copied it an octave below and then made a final chord which sounds really thick right there, that should be the whole tune. So go ahead and pause it where you need to make it correct. I tried to breeze through it as quickly as I can. I know it's a whole lot, but just do your best. Like I said, let me know if you have any questions. Let's hear that final thing one more time. I want you to focus on the melody this time, the high notes. Check it out. This is part one still. Then awesome. Now, if you want to play around with the sounds, I think synth would sound really cool too because it's more like modern, cartoony. Let's check that out. Let's go. Yeah, I like that bass. I love that final chord. It sounds real thick and juicy. Awesome. That's pretty much it. Like I said, I tried to burn through it as quickly as possible. If you haven't done part one, make sure you tune into part one. Make sure you like and subscribe, would really help me a lot. Share this video with your friends. Put your link to your song in the comments. Put a nice little few words with it too, or YouTube might delete it. I don't know. But yes, thank you for liking and subscribing. Thank you for watching. My name is Mr. Baker, your local neighborhood Batman. I love you. Peace.